Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 178, featuring the top 5 Enterprise vibes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are once again getting down with some Star Trek vibes in our new series that we're continuing here on TrekRanks. Tonight we're doing our top 5 Enterprise vibes. And, guess what? We're going to be vibing on Star Trek Enterprise. It's those vibes that make Enterprise. And we will get a little bit more into what that means in a second. But we want to get going right now by introducing our outstanding guest tonight. First up, he is returning for his 15th overall appearance on TrekRanks. One of our favorites, hailing us from the UK sector. It's the Miranda class, Carlos Miranda. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Jim. I am extremely excited to geek out on this topic with you guys today.
I can't wait to hear your Prime Directive and see how you did this, because I know you just had a Enterprise rewatch that you just finished, so it's going to be awesome. And our second guest is the co-host of the great First Flight podcast, which, of course, is all about Star Trek Enterprise. So she's the perfect guest tonight, back for her 8th appearance on TrekRanks. Hailing us from the Kenosha Quadrant, it's Abby Sommer. Abby, welcome back.
Thanks, Jim. It is always a pleasure to be here, but I am super pumped about this one. I echo Carlos that I can't wait to talk about this, because I pretty much haven't been thinking about much else since you asked me.
I love that. This is the perfect topic for a bunch of Enterprise geeks. All right, let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration so we can get into this show.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
Okay, the TrekRanks Charter has 2 clauses. 1, we rank Trek so we can have a fun conversation about Star Trek, and 2, the ranks don't matter. We just use them as a framework to have a deep dive conversation about all the things we love about Trek.
Infinite diversity in infinite combination. Words that are a mere shadow of its true meaning.
And their true meaning on Star Trek is there are no wrong answers. At TrekRanks, this show is just about sharing the things we love about Trek, and we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, now Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder, this episode of TrekRanks is current through the 4th season of Star Trek Lower Decks and 903 overall episodes of Star Trek across the past 57 years. No films are in play tonight, so we don't have to do that.
Hailing frequencies open.
Thank you, Mr. Worf. You can hail me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise N Extra on Blue Sky, at TrekRanks, and you can see our extensive rankings of all the Treks at TrekRanks.com. And don't forget to give us a call, leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, Carlos and Abby, let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Carlos, Double Mac.
I am, in addition, as many of you know, I love coffee, and my handle is at Double Mac, but I haven't been on Twitter now for a while. Yep. And so I love me some Blue Sky, because it's like Twitter 2012. So hit me up on Blue Sky.
Yeah, Carlos making it work over at Blue Sky. I love it.
I am making it work, man.
That's right. Abby.
Well, the best place to find me is probably still on Twitter, simply because I don't have the headspace to branch out, and that's Abby M. Sommer, Sommer. I do have Blue Sky. I'm there a tiny bit. My podcast, First Flight, is on all the places if you want to go look for us there, and I give it my best shot. So, Carlos, I'm impressed you've made the full transition. I'm finding it difficult, so props to you.
Fair enough. I mean, it isn't as active as Twitter, but I try.
Definitely not as active. Okay, I think we are ready to run a diagnostic cycle to get into this show.
I can't guarantee any of this will work without running a series of diagnostics.
All right, so real quick, this is the second in our new 5-part series running through the vibes of old school series of Star Trek. We started back on episode 155 with the Voyager vibes, and now here on episode 178, we're doing Enterprise vibes, which will be followed in the next year or two by TOS, TNG, Deep Space Nine, and then we're probably going to do some of the newer series like Picard vibes and Disco vibes. So we're going to get into that. All right. So what makes Star Trek Enterprise a vibe is the atmosphere of a place as communicated to and felt by others. That's the official definition. So you can go broad, you can go narrow. This is going to be a fun topic. And definitely recommend checking out episode 155 if you missed that one. It's a fun one with Dominic Burgess, Mr. Vup from Star Trek Picard. Okay, let's get into our prime directives right now. Hear how everybody broke it down.
Do they know about prime directive? They know everything I know, sir.
And you're about to know everything we know about our prime directive. So, Carlos, we're starting with you. How did you define an enterprise vibe and make your picks?
So, I mean, I first and foremost, I love this like subgenre that you're doing. And I really did enjoy the Voyager vibes because I did listen to that. You told me to listen to it in preparation for that. And that helped me get into the mindset. So for me, it really was kind of, I tackled this topic by thinking much more about what makes Enterprise really unique, right? Like what makes Enterprise and what's like the vibe of Enterprise that was not present in any other Star Trek show of the era, particularly the Berman era, but also just like what is it about Enterprise that is truly unique to Enterprise? And so it was, to me, I was thinking of like, well, yeah, that Enterprise vibe, and really, again, it's just about, you can only find this on Enterprise and really no other Star Trek show. So I tried to mostly stick to that.
That's a fantastic way to do it. I'm of course, thinking about my list and if it fits that. And I think it mostly does. Some of it's, you might have to squint a little bit to make it fit. But I like that a lot. Abby, how about you? What's your Enterprise vibe?
All right. So this is by far the most specific prime directive I've ever done being on TrekRanks because, well, I sat down and I made a list and I'm like, I could do 4 shows. And my podcast pretty much is deep dives and analysis into all these episodes. And I'm like, obviously I can talk for an hour plus on pretty much any episode of Enterprise if you so desire to hear that. But what I really wanted to do was find things that were just kind of like regular Enterprise episodes. I didn't want any season openers or finales, nothing that was like a big, huge special thing. I wanted just good, regular, normal Enterprise episodes. I wanted there to be a big theme of the show represented, but also one of the like little under themes that I've come to see having watched it as many times as I have and looking at it as critically. So I have it as a big theme, and then I call them the smile themes, like the things that Enterprise has that they're not that big of a deal, but if you look for them, they're super fun. And I wanted every season represented, and it ended up working out as I'm doing this list that I started in season 1 and I did season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4, and then my wild card was my number 1 pick that I could pick from any season because I wanted to make sure, that we got a little bit of everything. Because a lot of people think Enterprise and they think just the back half, seasons 3 and 4, which are phenomenal, but so are seasons 1 and 2. So I wanted to make sure I had some of that in there. And I wanted the episode itself to kind of have a vibe, to have kind of an overall feeling to it. So that helped me narrow everything down, but you're going to have to indulge me with a full list of secondary systems because I might have those too.
I like that. Actually, both your guys' prime directives are pretty much everything I kind of thought about. And I wanted mine to be mostly broad, right? Not super narrow. And to touch on, like what you said, Abby, about all the seasons and have each pick kind of span the whole length of the series. So yeah, and then I ended up just kind of narrowing down to the 5 that I wanted to talk about and highlight. The funny thing for me, and this is usually never the case, and you guys hear me all the time saying, okay, what'd you pick for this when we're in this kind of topic? What episode did you pick? This is the first time where I actually struggle with some of my picks to actually come up with, what the hell episode am I going to pick? I'm annoying myself now instead of annoying Carlos, who I always have to remind to pick an episode. So so that's what
happened like one time, like literally one time.
Okay. Oh, sure, Carlos. And Carlos, I forgot I was going to mention this. So we talked about this. You've been on, this is your 15th time.
Yeah.
14. You've been on 14 times that you've never picked an Enterprise episode, which is just a weird thing. Although, to be fair, like 10 of your topics have been specific enough that Enterprise wasn't eligible, but
I mean, come on, give me some credit. The first time I was on was like top 5 Kira moments.
I know you were on a bunch of DS9s and movie episodes. So anyway,
exactly.
Okay, and some season recap shows. So I will cut you a little slack there, but we're gonna remedy that tonight with some more Enterprise picks. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Modiclon. As always, everyone's going to start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our Enterprise vibe and the reasons we're highlighting it. And of course, everyone will pick an episode to associate with that pick so I can keep some stats. And then after going through our 5 rounds, we'll get some secondary systems selections from everyone. And remember, if you have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Carlos, we're starting with you. Your number 5 pick for your top 5 Enterprise vibes.
All right. So starting off with 5 words and a hashtag. My 5 words for this are keep your shirt on, Lieutenant. Hashtag fashion, turn to the left. And
oh my God.
My 5th pick for this is zippers and underwear. Okay.
Oh, it's so good.
All right. Really, the moment you said this asked me to be on this thing, I was like, what makes Enterprise? I'm like, the uniforms got zippers and you see them in their underwear a lot.
They're blue underwear.
Blue underwear. Blue underwear.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So immediately,
blue ab exposing underwear. Don't forget, everybody's abs are out in that underwear.
Yeah.
Everybody, there's nothing to hide. As an aside, I looked up that those were actually off-the-shelf DKNY underwear from the time period. 100%. I've looked this up, and I even like Robert Blackman talked about it in an interview. And for a long time, DKNY, you could just buy them. Like I think they stopped making them like 5 or 6 years ago. FYI, I'm sure on eBay you can buy them.
Awesome.
Anyway, so back to topic. So zippers and underwear. Yeah, I mean, immediately, obviously we're talking Berman era Trek. You had the 3 24th century shows that basically had, they all basically had the same uniform or permutations of the same uniform. And so when they launch Enterprise and it's not supposed to be that far into the future and they really wanted to give them that kind of astronaut NASA submarine feel, the uniforms are amazing. I love the Enterprise uniforms and the fact that they're so tactile and all the zippers and they look so different and functional and they look like something that you would wear in a submarine today. So I've always been a huge fan of the Enterprise uniforms. And obviously, you have kind of the decon chamber where everybody's in their underwear it is that kind of UPN directive that it was like, how do you make this one the sexiest Trek? And I remember that, when EW did their first, Entertainment Weekly did their first, like the reveal of Enterprise, like the cover was like the sexiest Star Trek ever. And so, yeah, to me, when it comes to Enterprise vibes, but literally those words came out of your mouth, Jim, and I was like, zippers and underwear. And so that's my number 5 pick.
That is perfect.
And the episode is
what's the episode?
Broken Bow. Okay. Yeah, Broken Bow. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's the first decon scene, so I might as well. Abby.
Correct.
By the way, the equal opportunity decon scene.
Absolutely.
Abby, what do you got?
All right, Carlos, I love you because that is so perfect. And as anyone who's ever listened to me talk about Trek knows how much I love costumes. And yeah, you called out 2 of the things that people both love and roll their eyes at in Enterprise with those wonderful uniforms and the underwear. And it is so Enterprise. And you know what? One of the things about those uniforms that I appreciate is that they have like 15 pockets. And that seemed to me like something like you think about Lower Decks and Rutherford's like, oh my God, we have pockets. Like pockets are really important.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I love it. And they look like they'd be more comfortable than the other uniforms too. So that's always a big thing.
Well, since I'm here and I can speak from experience, I can tell you I kept a lot of stuff in those pockets. My wallet, my 2004 era digital camera that looked like the size of a brick. So Yeah.
Jim,
fantastic.
you were on Enterprise?
And super comfortable. I was one time. Yes, I was.
What?
Turns
you never
out,
talk about it.
as
That's
it
so
turns
bizarre.
out. It's incredible how little I actually do talk about it. That's the truth. Okay, here we go. Love that pick. Abby, what's your top Enterprise vibe?
All right, so my round 5 is my season 1 pick, and my 5 words are Silic, Daniels, future graphics, locked door. And my hashtag is goosebumps because this is Cold Front, and Cold Front is the temporal Cold War's kind of first real beginning. You get some inklings of it before then, but this is the one where it really starts. So that was my big Enterprise theme that I called out on this one. And my kind of smile theme underneath was there are some CGI that's better than others in Enterprise. Some has stood the test of time, some hasn't. But you know what? It's a product of its time. And this episode shows some of that. Some of the best CGI and some of the not best CGI of Enterprise. But this is the episode of Enterprise in season 1 that made me go, ooh, I don't just like this show. I love this show. Yeah. I love time travel stuff. I think the Suliban are great and were underused. I love that whole first act of this feels like a family vibe. We get to know Daniels. We see Archer use the crazy salt and pepper shaker in the captain's mess in the beginning. Like, that's an Enterprise thing right there. And the graphics when you guys laughing at the salt and pepper shakers. Come on, there's only like 4 episodes you actually see them get used, and this is one of them. So that's definitely.
If I close my eyes, I see him shaking it in my mind's eye.
I know.
Like,
how do they work? How do they work?
They're like pendulums, right? So they hang on this little holder, and it's like you take them out, and it's kind of like the old priest did with the incense back in the 1500s.
Yeah, doesn't it just fly everywhere? Okay.
I think the holes are only at the bottom. They're actually
all right. I need
real.
to study that. I need to study that because I can visualize it. It's so funny. All right. Anyway, sorry.
Obviously, another thing I love about Enterprise is the food. So
yes,
that may be coming
I figure that's coming up later. So
yes.
All right. So Cold Front and the temporal Cold War vibes, Carlos.
I mean, come on. Aside from zippers and underwear, it's like zippers, underwear, and the temporal Cold War are like the holy trinity of Enterprise, right? 100%. How can you not talk about Enterprise vibes and not talk about the temporal Cold War? As you said, Jim, I just finished an Enterprise rewatch like a month ago, and I loved it. It was so enjoyable. And I'd revisited a lot of Enterprise, but it had been a while since I had done like a proper rewatch. And afterwards, I did a deep dive into like every behind the scenes feature that I could see and or listen to on YouTube. Yeah. And it is amazing how much like Brandon Braga, Rick, how much they like have come to like really dislike like the elements of the Cold War, of the temporal Cold War, and how I complicated the show. But like, I actually kind of love it. Like,
love it.
And to be fair, they didn't overdo it. So like I never felt I don't have that like they all talk about it how it was confusing and they couldn't do it and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I remember vividly watching the season 3 finale, and then like my jaw hit the floor when Archer wakes up in like an alien Nazi camp. I was like, this is the greatest show.
This is the greatest thing ever. So great that I am going to move my number 4 pick into the round 5 right now, and we're going to talk about temporal shenanigans. And my 5 words hashtag, my 5 words and hashtag tapestry woven with temporal DNA, hashtag J Daniels Space Nazis. And my pick is Stormfront from Enterprise season 4. And we've just covered it all here in this round. So we have Broken Bows where it starts. Cold Front is the first episode outside of the opening or the beginning and the end here. And then Stormfront's where it ends, the temporal Cold War. And I love all the time travel shenanigans throughout the series, right? From these 3 that we just talked about to Carpenter Street and to stuff with the Sphere Builders and the Azadi Prime and 0 Hour, all the way to Stormfront. I've only picked this episode's only been picked one time on TrekRanks, and it was I picked it in our top 5 time travel episodes in episode 14, like 6.5 years ago. So I freaking love the space Nazis and how, just like you said, Carl, it's just absolutely on the floor when 0 Hour ended and season 3 ended on that, and then we just did. And even though it was a little bit rushed to finish, right, because they obviously were going to go a little bit different direction in season 4, it was a home run. It's still, they killed it. With Silic and his death and the whole thing, I freaking love it. Love it. Abby, any other thoughts?
Well, and we can't not talk about how Silic has probably the best way of saying John in the entire universe. Like, that just makes it so much better because nobody else can say John like he does.
I'm not the one you should be worried about, John. They're lying to you, John. You've been very helpful, John.
It's such a neat thread throughout all of this Enterprise, and I wish they'd bring it back to more Trek. Like, all the little references, I'm just like, oh, you referred to it. Are we going to do something with this? Can we please have more of this? Like, there's so many options, and it's just such a fun way to spitball and explore and try different theories and all this, and it's got to come back because it's one of those threads that I really, really, really want to know more about. It doesn't even have to end. Just give me more of it because it's so interesting.
I completely agree. And you mentioned Carpenter Street, Jim. Carpenter Street, like, low-key, a top 5 episode of Enterprise for me. I freaking love that episode. Like, those, like, standalone episodes in season 3, like, like the ones that are, like, very genre-esque, like when, Cowboys or
North Star,
obviously, North Star, or when they're, like Carpenter Street being like a John Carpenter movie, like the vibe of like that episode is a vibe, and it's awesome.
Yep, I love it, and Leland Orser is in it, so he is as good as it gets. Okay, round 4, let's do it. Carlos, what's your number 4 pick?
All right, my number 4 pick, again, very much a vibe. Ooh, I am cheating. My 5 words is actually 6 words, right?
Cool.
And I have to tell you, I did this very consciously. So I've always, almost since the beginning, I don't know if you ever caught this, but my 5 words are always a line of dialogue from the episode, right? And my hashtag is always a lyric from a song that I think that is about, that could fit about the episode. So my hashtag is, I turn my camera on, and my 6 words are, where no dog has gone before. And it is, my pick is just innocence and excitement, right? And it is an Enterprise vibe that you don't get really anywhere else, because my episode is Strange New World, so the 3rd episode of the show.
Yeah.
And I love that episode. I really love that episode.
So underrated. Yep.
Oh, completely underrated Trek. Completely underrated Trek.
So good.
And one of my favorite moments of all of Enterprise, truly one of my true favorite moments, is when the landing party / away team lands on the planet. The door opens and Porthos runs out. And Archer is like so freaking excited to like be on an alien planet, and he has his digital camera and he's like, everybody pose. Like, because they just, it really leans hard into the overall kind of plot and premise and potential of the show, that this isn't, these aren't seasoned sailors, right? This isn't Captain Picard, Captain Sisko. These aren't people that have seen everything 10 times over. And that's not knocking those shows. I freaking love all of it, right? But this is one of the things that makes Enterprise, is that the crew is excited about being out there and experiencing all of these things for the first time. The fear of getting into getting on a transporter, the excitement of like actually having, putting your feet down on an alien planet that no human has ever been at before. Like, all of that is so tangible. I would even argue throughout the entire series, but particularly in the first 2 seasons. And I just love that moment. And it's just, and also because it comes from Archer, who's the captain, who sets the tone. And he's just so wide-eyed and excited. And that is unique to Enterprise to me.
So this, you just said it, wide-eyed. I can't believe that. So on my secondary system is like wide-eyed exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about Civilization, which is one of my underrated episodes that I really like, because that opening where they like tease him about, oh, we found a pulsar and we found this, and then they're like, oh, we found this world with like 8 million people on it and mid level evolution, and I love that. So this is exactly that vibe and that feeling of the innocence and excitement that they have in the show throughout. I love it, especially the first 2 seasons. But Abby, what's your take? I love this.
This is perfect. And this is something that we've talked a ton about on my podcast, because we've done the first 2 seasons. Is yes, they are optimistic. They run up to any other species they see. They're like, hi, we're the humans. We're ready to be friends. Want to do some science? Like, it's just so gentle. Like, they're out there, and you see them come to the realization that it's not all happiness and rainbows out there, but they keep that alive for so long because they are excited and they're first at so many things. The first comet like this, the first planet like this, the first pulsar like this, the first time we get, and that's awesome. And it's one of those things that I really enjoy about Enterprise too, because this isn't one of the captains that we knew. This is the guy who did the things so that they had a policy or a procedure or something to know how to do these. And whether it turns out to be, oops, we maybe shouldn't have been quite as, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed about this, but a lot of times they do find good things, and they're so willing to help the first couple seasons with that optimism. Like, oh, you need this? Let's help you out. Oh, some Klingons are coming to, bother you. Oh, we'll help you out. Like, that's just so Enterprise. And you said it so well. Like, it's just a beautiful part that they're out there just being excited to be in space.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, and they're breaking the ice. So you see all those first, like when they find that comet and they're like, Archer's comet. We're calling it Archer's comet.
Exactly.
I love it. It's so good. Okay, round 4. Abby, what's your number 4 pick?
All right. So my 5 words are principled intensity, perhaps you can't, #Phlox Rocks. And my theme for this is, these are not the Vulcans we know. And my episode is Stigma from season 2.
Ooh.
And I have to say, Stigma has always been one I really like. It has rapidly risen in this past year, especially since I really looked at it deeply for my podcast, to one of my favorite, probably top 10 Enterprise episodes of all time. There is so much in this. So these are not the Vulcans we know. And Enterprise took so much crap for that when it first came out. Like, why are the Vulcans jerks? Why are they, holding everybody back? Why are they not doing what we know them to do? Well, you know what? This is them in prequelness as well. And I like seeing that the Vulcans have to grow and evolve and open their minds and learn from other species just as much as the humans do in this show. And this episode, first of all, this episode shows that if the big trio of this had been Phlox, T'Pol, and Archer, it would have been a great show as well. I love Trip. I love his episodes, but the 3 of them together are a powerful team. And Phlox in this episode, well, this is definitely a T'Pol episode. Phlox cannot be discounted because you see him in this episode as a husband, as a doctor, as like a professional colleague, all sorts of different layers of Phlox going on in here. And these Vulcans, when you go through, he's butting up against, as a non-human, the same, not the Vulcans we know, this like impenetrable wall of them going, well, you know what, our logic says this and this, and it's not up to me. No. Come on, you guys are being rigid for no reason. And I think about when Archer is coming in and he says, it's been a long time since I've been embarrassed by a Vulcan. And that's a very Enterprise moment in there too. Yeah. And I like how this shows Archer has grown with these Vulcans, just like the Vulcans have grown into knowing the humans. And that's important too, because the way I said in my 5 words, perhaps you can't, is because when he goes down after, they found out T'Pol has the syndrome, everybody knows, they came all the way up from the planet to make her touch something to find out that, yes, she's infected. And when Archer realizes that T'Pol is so principled and she is intensely and fiercely determined to not say how this happened to her, how she got Panar syndrome, because she's not going to condemn or vilify the minority that does this by choice. And Archer doesn't necessarily agree, but he follows her lead. He goes with her with it. So does Phlox. Like, these men are nothing but incredibly respectful. But when Archer beams down and he's trying to get the hearing for T'Pol, and he walks into the compound, there's a moment in there where some little lackey Vulcan comes up and goes, "Oh, the doctor's not available. Perhaps I can help you." And this is the most, only Archer would do this moment. He looks at him and goes, "Perhaps you can't." Yeah. And then just keeps walking. And
keeps walking, yeah.
I can't see any other captain doing that. I can see them standing up for their first officer and fighting for what they think is right. But, Archer is very polite, but he can weaponize that politeness. And he can also turn it on to that fierce intensity. And this episode, the Vulcans are, like I said, like a wall. And they're so different than what we know, but you're starting to see the cracks. You're starting to see that they're developing, that the people from the minority are raising their voices. Things are changing. Logic is, can be used to do anything you want it to if you spin it the right way. And I really love that. And I also love the fact that you can just live in Vulcan aesthetic in this episode, which is something that I think we wouldn't have modern Vulcan aesthetic if we didn't have Enterprise that had done all these little pieces. I mean, Vulcans have living art around them. Their clothes are art. Their candles are art. Even their lab is artful. Their lab coats look Vulcan. Like, this whole thing, it's the Vulcans we know, but the Vulcans we don't know, and how they grow into it. And I love the fact that we had a main character Vulcan, and she was not the typical Vulcan, and that is okay.
Yeah, Stigma is a great pick for this.
I'm not going to comment too much on this right now, but I will say that Jolene is I single-handedly, I think, like the unsung hero of Berman era Trek. I think she is, and I don't say this lightly, I genuinely think that she is one of the best actors in Star Trek, that she just doesn't get the recognition that she deserves. I think she was truly, truly, truly incredible as T'Pol, and she was like 25 when she was cast. It was crazy. She was so talented. And T'Pol is one of my all-time favorite Star Trek characters. And for all the reasons Abby said, and Jolene, just take a minute to really praise Jolene and her acting throughout the entire show, because I think she was just amazing and an unsung hero of Trek.
Yeah, Stigma is just a great pick for this, for Vulcans and the middle point of where we are with their journey. It's really good. And by the way, Vulcans have always been jerks, okay? In TOS, they were jerks. In TNG, they were jerks. I mean, I'll never understand that. Okay, here we go. Is it my pick? Oh, yeah, here we go. Round 4, my pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Tip of the Suliban iceberg, hashtag. Genetic gene adjustments go boldly. And my pick is genetic manipulation. So it's not just the Sulibans. It's you see this genetic manipulation kind of all through Star Trek Enterprise. So, and obviously I love the Sulibans. Again, talk about underrated. The things they did in this series were incredible. But I love the Sulibans receiving the genetic manipulation from the future. Really clever kind of way to frame your number one foil for the series. But then that's just one example. You've also got Similitude, which is amazing, one of the best episodes ever. You've got the answer to the question that you never needed the answer to, because we don't talk about it, was more than enough. But we get the Klingons and affliction/divergence, and the answer to the Klingons, smooth foreheads. You have Extinction from season 3, one of the best episodes of Star Trek Enterprise ever. It's really the best. It's very bad, and goes all the way back to my pick is Broken Bow for this, and not because of the Sulibans, but because of Klang's blood being genetically modified to transmit that message. Anyway, there's just examples of this all the way through all 4 seasons, and I love that. It's really a Suliban pick, but I wanted to kind of make it a little broader than that. Abby, what's your take?
Well, that is a perfect pick. And yeah, I want more Suliban. I would like to know where they are in the Discovery time period now, because obviously they've continued growing and expanding. And did they go completely the opposite way and say no genetic modifications? Have they gone crazy and now they can be even more invisible and have 6 eyes or a tail or whatever?
Yeah.
fantastic. And one of the things that I like about Enterprise is that it did give us some of these beginnings about how we were just starting to think about here in our modern lives, genetic manipulation and DNA and changing stuff and CRISPR and all that. And now here's this show going, yeah, this has got some things we might need to think about. And they coined the term augments, which has then come back up through so many other modern series. And that is because of Enterprise. And that's just such a neat little thread. And it's something that Trek has really tackled for a long time. And they're still tackling because we're still tackling it. And that is something that I really like about Enterprise, is because it's kind of that connecting piece from where we are now to where the future of the Federation. We see those connections and we see how those threads are affecting us now. And it's still important because the lessons we get from Enterprise, especially about stuff like gene manipulation and all those gray areas, is one of the things that makes it such a good show to revisit over and over again.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you were saying immediately, I went, as Abby was saying, like the augments as well. Like I had never really thought about how much genetic manipulation is in the show, but it is in the show a lot. And obviously, yes, the Suliban and the Suliban very obvious because, the makeup on the Suliban is so cool looking, right? And so unique, and it's so rare. Good. It's so good. It looks so real. So good. And there's so many.
It even goes on their fingernails.
No, totally. There's so many real extreme close-ups of Suliban makeup, and it just holds up. It's as good today. It looks as good now as it did back then.
Yeah.
Proof.
But it's just there's so many episodes with the Suliban and genetic manipulation. But yes, I have never really thought about how much it permeates throughout the entire series and at different points, and it is the kind of center point of so many things in Enterprise.
Great sci-fi conceit for the series. All right, let's go to the soup round.
I think I can handle some soup.
Carlos, what is your soup round pick?
All right. My soup round pick. So my 5 words are: look beyond your provincial attitudes. Hashtag don't want to be an American idiot. And it is an annoyed to Paul. That is, it's not to Paul.
It's annoyed to Paul. Yes.
Right?
That is a true vibe. That's the whole point of
vibe, my friends.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right. To Paul, Given, Archer, Saval, insert character name here, and annoyed of which is what my 12-year-old daughter does a lot, but she does it in the most Vulcan way possible. And I just love an annoyed to Paul because she's 9 out of 10 times always the one that's right. She knows the right answer. She knows that what they're doing is stupid, or this isn't going to work. And she lets them do it, but she always makes it known that she's annoyed by it, right? And it's such a vibe. It's such a vibe. And there's so many gifs of her raising an eyebrow or her looking at someone, And it's because it is annoyed to Paul is a whole vibe. And it's, again, I love Jolene. I love the character of T'Pol. T'Pol is my favorite character on the show, followed closely by Phlox. But just annoyed to Paul, that is a whole vibe. And there's and if you really think about it, there's different types of annoyed to Paul. There's adolescent, annoyed to Paul of ugh, I hate all of you. But there's also annoyed to Paul of this isn't gonna work, guys. Or there's also the annoyed to Paul of oh my God, here we go again. There's all of these variations of annoyed to Paul. And I just think it's a vibe, and it only exists in Enterprise.
I can't wait to hear what episode you're going to pick, because there are so many good options.
There's a million options, but I'm going to go with Carbon Creek because
yes,
not only is my favorite episode of Enterprise, right? And obviously it's her, it's her grandmother or great grandmother. So it's when in the frame story when she's telling Archer and Trip this story, and they don't really believe her, and she just sometimes looks at them like they're stupid teenage frat boys, and they kind of are sometimes,
Yep.
I think that wine's gone to your head.
What are you implying?
2 Vulcans stroll into a bar. hustle a few games of pool, and walk out with an armload of TV dinners. It sounds like an old episode of The Twilight Zone.
If you're not interested in hearing the rest.
Hold on. We didn't say we weren't interested.
And so, like, I love, like, her interactions around the table, particularly in Carbon Creek.
Incredible. Perfect pick, Abby.
Oh, that is absolutely perfection. And you can see her. And a lot of times it's like she's holding a mug of tea and she gives you the one eyebrow look, like, seriously? Yeah. And I use that gif all the time because it's so perfect. And, I love moments too where she's telling them that she's annoyed about stuff and she just leaves with one tiny little zinger. And Vulcans are famous for that. Tuvok does it too, but T'Pol has the ones. Like, I'm thinking about, and I'm forgetting which episode it's in, but she and Archer are on the treadmill and they're discussing something and he keeps like putting his speed up to get hers, to match hers, and then she puts it up and then he puts it up. And then she finally just gives up and she goes, obviously I can't keep up with you. And then she walks away and I'm just like, ah! And it's nice to see that T'Pol, her feelings are always closer to the surface than, the traditional Vulcan, but it's okay because she's in the place where that is the perfect way for her to be. And I love when she does that too, and she's annoyed, but she's also the boss. Like, I think about Cogenitor when she just rips Trip a new one about how, you should have done this. The captain is thinking that these are the most important things with first contact, and you might have ruined all this. And she's just given him that pure, flat, intense look, and she's so aggravated by him. And it's one of the best scenes of the episode because T'Pol is just a master at that. And I would never want to be on the receiving end of that look. That's for sure.
Yeah. That treadmill scene, of course, is a night in sick bay.
Yes, a night in sick bay. You're completely right.
I'm going to give you the best T'Pol zinger, at least one I'm thinking of off the top of my head, is in Breaking the Ice after he admits that he read her personal letter. And she says, I have more letters in my quarters. Would you like to read those too? So great. So great. So great.
So good. So good. But I'm telling you, it's annoyed T'Pol is the whole vibe.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm glad you put a pin in it. This is what vibes are all about on our Vibe series, Annoyed T'Pol. I love it. Okay, Abby, what's your number 3 pick?
All right. So number 3 is actually from the 3rd season because this is how it worked with my picks this time. And my 5 words are Sim's short life impacts all. # you owe me one. And this is similitude. And this is the theme that I picked, that Enterprise lives in the gray. And anyone, again, who's heard me talk about Enterprise knows that I love this about Enterprise. They hit moral dilemmas in a way that other shows don't because they're out there first, because they don't have a prime directive, because things are squishy, and because they're the only ones. There aren't a lot of people for them to talk to about stuff. And like, Similitude hits in the middle of that season 3 where it's so intense and so like it feels like you're constantly going forward, whether or not you know where you're going. And this one is almost like a little pause in there. And it has such a good cold open, which is always one of my favorites, where we don't know that it's Sim who's dead. We think it's Trip that's dead. And that's just one of those moments where you're like, excuse me, what? And then they start just layering all these gray choices throughout there. Like, creating Sim is a gray choice to begin with. And then, guess what? The next layer is he's not actually surviving. Now there's another layer. There might be an enzyme that could do this. Well, you know what? Archer's going to kill him for Trip anyway. And I mean, there's just so much gray. And then I love that the thing that makes Sim come to his final choice is Lizzie. Like, remembering his sister, remembering that deep emotional moment, because a feeling of family and having emotions that you have to somehow come to terms with while you're dealing with other really big, literally earth-shattering moments is another kind of low-key Enterprise vibe in there. And I have to say, Phlox's surgical gown is literally gray in this one. So it's representing this morally dubious choice. And I love the fact that this episode has Porthos, which is always a great Enterprise vibe. Nobody else has a dog running around like that. It has great music. You can talk about it forever. And one of the small things that I really like that I've been noticing rewatching Enterprise for my podcast is whenever Archer and Trip have to have a big conversation about emotional stuff, they have to be doing something. Like they can't just stand and have it. They have to be fixing something, flying something, going somewhere, cleaning the injectors or whatever. And Sim does that, young Sim does that with Archer here. They're flying the little, plane around. And that's when they're having this big talk about why he doesn't have parents on the ship and all this. So even Sim had to be doing something and Archer had to be doing something for them to have that big emotional conversation, which is also so completely Enterprise. And I mean, my list of Enterprise episodes that are about gray moral choices is like 12 long. I mean, you could have just off the top of my head, we can do Damage, we can do Dear Doctor, we can do Cogenitor. Like you just keep going because that is Enterprise. They're figuring stuff out as they go and they don't always get it right, but they wrestle with it and they think about it. And those things have impact on them as they go. And that's that light serialization that they got to start. And now in season 3, it's heavy serialization. And I love that you see the impact of this gray choice throughout the rest of the season.
I need Trip.
I don't have to tell you what's at stake. I must complete this mission. And to do that, I need Trip.
Carlos, what's your take on the gray areas? I love this Enterprise vibe pick. This is like the gray moral areas and the things that they have to figure out on the fly. So good.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I'll never look at Phlox's, surgery coat the same way ever again. It's like it's a metaphor.
It is.
I love it.
It does. The show does a really good job of, like you said, Abby. They do tackle, in the greatest tradition of Star Trek, right? They do tackle these big existential kind of gray areas. It isn't pretty, and especially against the backdrop of like the Xindi War and at what point do you push your morals in order for for the greater good? And I just think that this show did a great job. And these are some of the there's a reason why some of the best episodes of the show and the ones that we are here talking about 20 years later is episodes like this. Is because they're not clean cut, and you can argue one way and one way for the show or another way, and both are perfectly valid. And at the end of the day, Archer's decisions, I think, was the right one, right? But I mean, you're also talking to somebody who would have been like, I would have killed Tuvix like immediately. I'm like, that's not who I need, right? Like, so.
Hey, this isn't. We're not doing that. That was Voyager vibes. We already did that.
Exactly. But my point is that the show did in the great tradition of Star Trek and sci-fi, it never shied away from those big existential questions, and the show is better for it now. And here we are talking about an episode that was made, 20 years ago.
Similitude is a classic, number 3 on our Enterprise TrekRanks list. Okay, let's close out round 3. This one was kind of number 1 on my list right when I thought of this topic and never left. So here we go. 5 words and a hashtag. Arc the Enterprise writers sing, hashtag not just season 4. And this is that vibe of arcs, mini arcs are just a vibe throughout Enterprise. And I'm not just talking about the obvious ones like the Augments, the Vulcan trilogy, the Romulan-Andorian arc, Affliction, Divergence, all the season 4, but we're talking, and there's also the big ones, right? There's Temporal Cold War and there's the Xindi, but there's so many little ones like Let's Get to Risa arc, Fallen Hero, Desert Crossing, 2 days, 2 nights. Yeah. Let's Get to Azadi Prime arc, Duras is an asshole arc. The Minefield Dead Stop is basically that's basically a double header. You've got you mentioned it before, the Pinar Syndrome arc with T'Pol. The arcs are never ending, all the way down to one of my classic Enterprise vibes. It's the 3-episode arc of T'Pol in her quarters with a somber fade out shot over the credits of pecan pie in Breaking the Ice, a candle in Fusion, and holding up her relative's purse in Carbon Creek. So all 3 of those episodes end on the same somber note with T'Pol in her quarters, with some inanimate object. So, and the episode I'm picking, just because I feel like it was the start of the real core of this with the 3 episode arcs in season 4, and it's super underrated, is Borderland when Brent Spiner comes back as Eric Sung. I love the Augment arc. I think it's super underrated, and Borderland is just way too much fun from season 4. So Carlos, what's your take?
Yeah, I remember when Deep Space Nine did the first 3 episode arc, right?
With
like Circle and like
Circle trilogy,
the Circle trilogy. And I was 11, but I remember being my mind blown that you could do more, like because it was always like every episode was a standalone, and every once in a while, if you were really good, you'd get a 2-parter. And that was it, right? And I remember being like, wait, you could do more than 2 episodes?
Exactly.
It occurred to me, right? When Deep Space Nine did like the Circle trilogy, right? And I just, in the hands of great writers, and some of these stories are truly, truly great. Like being able to kind of tell a great Enterprise story over the course of 2 hours, i.e. 45 minutes, whatever it is, times 3, right? Basically a 2-hour movie. They did it so well. And yes, you have the Augment one, but the Augment trilogy, but like really, obviously like the Vulcan, like the Kershara, the Cyranites trilogy is just so amazing. And they do it, they did it to great effect. And one of the things that I loved about season 4 is the fact that season 4 is such like an absolute mix of standalone episodes, 2-parters and 3-parters. And it just worked so well. And God knows how amazing would it have been if the show would have been allowed to continue, like how they would have evolved that concept, and like where would have been like the season-long and series-long arcs that would have been introduced, and like the 3-parters. It was such a nice way to mix things up, where it wasn't the Deep Space Nine full-on serialization, even though they did it really in season 3. But it was this nice mix between what Star Trek used to be and what Star Trek would become.
Brilliant summary there. Yeah. And that what they did was so unique, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of it in other shows. The way they did it there. It's just awesome.
Correct.
Manny Koto, rest in peace for him. But
yes.
That's something special. Abby, what's your take?
That's an absolute gorgeous way to put it, because there are so many arcs in Enterprise. I mean, while you were talking, I'm like, oh, you could also talk about T'Pol's marriage to Koss, and then how that affects her relationship with her mom. That's a mini arc that starts way back in season 1. You can talk about Columbia getting built and launching and all of that. That's a mini arc that goes through it all. Just Forrest and Saval gaining respect for each other and coming to see eye to eye. That's a mini arc. There's so much. And Trek does it so well, but Enterprise does it differently. And I think you're 100% right that it was that transition between, the 90s Trek, and now we're in the 2000s, and they used that to push some things I wish they hadn't, but this was one I was really glad they did. Because like, I remember season 7 of DS9, me going, oh my God, this was amazing. It was like one big story, blah, 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 blah. And then it's sometimes hard to go back and pull things from that, because it is one big story. Like that's how modern Trek is. Sometimes you feel like, well, I kind of got to watch the season, because otherwise I don't get the whole story. So these mini arcs you can do in an evening or a weekend, and it's just satisfying in a way that I don't think other Treks have done. So what a beautiful pick.
Yeah, I love that. And to this day, I still get confused. It's like Penumbra, Strange Bedfellows.
Oh my God.
Is Changing Face of Evil next? I don't even know it. Am I missing one? I don't know.
One of my favorite things in the world is going to be like, I'm going to watch this episode of season 7 of Deep Space Nine.
And then just watch
20 days later, I'm still watching season 7.
Tell me about it. All right, here we go. Round 2. Carlos, what do you got?
All right, round 2. My 5 words are Night of the Killer Androids, # That's Why God Made the Movies, and it is movie night.
Movie night! I did not think of this. I'm an idiot. Oh, so good.
Movie nights. Because let's talk about a vibe. No other Trek show. Like, yes, they have 10 forward, or obviously going to Quarks, which actually would be legit kind of fun, right? But like movie night on like a submarine going through space makes all the sense in the world, right? What, like, they don't have a holodeck. They have kind of like a crappy gym, right? With like 5 machines on it, right?
But there's a gyroscope machine, so come on now.
I mean, it's true, but only for one person. There's 80 people, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get a ticket. Like, so like there's not like there's not like a lot of recreational activities. So obviously they're gonna do movie night. It just makes it's so natural to the show, right? And no
so
other, and the thing I love about movie night is that movie night is very, well, there's a lot of things why I picked this, and I'll get to them in a second. But like one of the things I love about movie night is that unlike the holodeck, because the holodeck is a lot of times it's like 2 or 3 people go on it, but a lot, like, it seems like a very solitary activity. Like, you're going to go on the holodeck to do this thing by yourself. Maybe you'll go with that one friend. But the thing I love about movie night is that it's for everyone. And so a lot of the scenes where there is movie night, yes, it's not the entire crew, but it's usually a lot of them. And you see them with the crew. And it's like 20 people watching a B movie. And I just love it. And I love how much Phlox loves it, his stupid, amazing smile, and the popcorn. It's just a vibe. It only exists on Enterprise. One of my favorite things of all of Star Trek is when the crew is just hanging out and being friends.
Yes. Right, of course.
I love this.
Yeah.
Like, I love Data's Day. I love Carbon Creek. I love episodes. In fact, I wrote an article for StarTrek.com years ago about like how much I love low-key episodes where like they're not saving the galaxy and nothing kind of happens, right? Yeah. And movie night to me is a beautiful, perfect example of that, because it's a communal activity. They all get together, they do it, and also just feels like, again, a very natural activity that people, even 150 years in the future or 100 years in the future, would be doing. And I just love it, and it's a total vibe.
The fact that Rosemary's Baby is part of Star Trek Enterprise history makes me so happy. I love this pick. Abby, what's your take?
This is perfection, because on top of the fact of all the things that you've said, Carlos, when you see them at movie night, there's food, which is such an Enterprise thing. Like, there's always popcorn or snacks or all that. And there's amazing off-duty clothing, which is just so like what 2000 thought future stuff would be. And it's so different than any of the other Star Trek shows. It's not like, the asymmetrical wonders that we usually get. It feels like they're almost things that you could kind of wear, like they're just kind of pants and a t-shirt, but then every once in a while you get somebody with like this fancy swirly thing or these shoulder pads, and it's just fun. And it feels like you could just kind of join in. And isn't that what we all secretly want to do, is just join in with all of our friends on the ship? So what a perfect choice.
Very much so. Okay, Carlos, what's the episode? I forgot.
Dear Doctor.
Oh, perfect. What was the movie? Do you remember? Was it
it wasn't Night of the Killer Androids. That's another one. I looked this up on Memory Alpha, but whatever the movie was for Dear Doctor was not 5 words. So that's the reason I did Night of the Killer Androids.
No. We can go if you're bored.
No, I'd like to stay and see what happens.
You won't be disappointed. The ending's classic.
No, not the film. I'm sensing a rising emotional undercurrent in the room. I'm curious to see if it culminates in some kind of group response.
It's easier for me. They don't have movies where you come from, do they?
Well, we had something similar a few hundred years ago, but they lost their appeal when people discovered their real lives were more interesting.
If you go, I go too.
Oh, still. It's nice to take a break from real life every now and then, don't you think?
I suppose it is.
Okay, love it. Abby, what's your number 2 pick?
Okay, so we're in season 4 for me, going through our seasons here. And my 5 words are CensorNet, First Joint Mission, #Archer Bridges Species. And the episode I'm focusing on is United from the Andorian trilogy there. Like, this is another thing that I absolutely adore about Enterprise, and that I feel that Jonathan Archer doesn't get enough credit for. He brought species together. He was continuously bringing species together. I mean, well before we had the Xindi arc, where he convinces, all of their factions to end up, well, for the most part, sorry, reptilians, but he convinces all of them. He's convincing the Andorians to listen to the Vulcans, even after they've both done some horrible things to each other. He's convincing the Tellarites to come in and join this. They set up this giant censor net the first time that you have got all of those founding members of the Federation doing something together. And you see the crumbs of this starting way back at the beginning of season 1. And you see episodes that you don't expect to be episodes about the founding of the Federation coming through, and like, you're going, oh, look, Archer did this in here, and now he's referring back to it. And look, we learned this leadership skill. And oh, look, the Vulcans are doing this. And it's just so many little threads and pieces that when you get to this in season 4, you're like, well, of course this was going to happen. We've been watching the seeds of this be planted for years. Of course it's growing into where we know. Now, I wish there had been a 5th season and beyond too, so we could have seen more of this, but it's just so good to see Archer. He'll put himself out there to make the bigger piece, to make the connection. I mean, he goes and does the Yushan with Shran because he wants this to work so much. He's not going to let him have this issue with the Tellarites, even though there's, justification there.
Should have cut off my head.
I considered it, but I still need your help.
What good is a guardsman without 2 antennae?
You'll begin to compensate within a day or 2.
They take 9 months to grow back.
If left untreated. With electrical stimulation and brisk cranial massage, you'll be back to normal in half that time.
He wants people to come together. He wants species to see each other with the open minds that humans try to go in with. And he sees how he can be a neutral party in so many different aspects of the galaxy around him, and he gets pretty damn good at it by the end. He really has grown into not just being a leader of humans and a leader of Enterprise, but being a leader in the galaxy. And there's no better place to see that than these episodes.
Love that. Such a great breakdown. Carlos.
No, it is amazing. And I can't believe that when we were talking about mini arcs, we didn't talk about like the Andorian. That's how many good arcs there are in Enterprise, right?
I was quiet for a reason, yeah.
Yeah, right.
No, totally. No, but it is. And I love, I think as you said, Abby, like the idea, and Manny Connor talked about this a lot, right? And to be fair, so did Rick and Braga, that like had the show continued, they would have leaned heavily into kind of the Romulan War, but then also truly the forming of the Federation. And you see so much of that, yes, throughout the entire series, but particularly in season 4. And it is one of the greatest aspects of the show. And like to have Jonathan Archer really be, grow into a true like architect of the Federation was an amazing element of the show.
And it starts right there in Broken Bow at the end when he's like, hey, you want to stay on the ship and help us because we think this is actually a good thing. So brilliant. I love it. All permeates throughout a total Enterprise vibe. Okay, I guess that's me. Round 2, 5 words and a hashtag. Proudly presenting Premiere Pulp Productions, hashtag 50s sci-fi fun. And my pick is just pulp sci-fi fun. And I love Star Trek Enterprise for this. Anyone who listens to TrekRanks knows that I am a huge, like, classic fan of 50s sci-fi. Like, it came from outer space and Forbidden Planet and the original War of the Worlds. I love all these classic movies, The Blob, Them. There's so many. So, and no other Star Trek series has captured that fun pulp sci-fi feel better than Enterprise. Obviously, I love Bride of Chaotica stuff, and what the Voyager did there is spectacular. But this just throughout the series, you've got In a Mirror Darkly, Stormfront, which I just picked. I mean, Space Nazis, alternate Earth history. You got Future Tense, bigger on the inside. In a Mirror Darkly, just chewing the scenery, just having fun. And I bring it all the way back. My pick for this from Enterprise Season 2, Episode 23 is Regeneration, and the amazing homage to The Thing, and it came from outer space. Just breakneck speed fun episode. That episode, I cannot believe how much they cram into 44 minutes. I freaking love that. And that's beyond just obviously the great connections with First Contact and the Borg and that whole story, but just the way they're just having so much fun following the Borg leaving Earth and the whole bit. I love it. So, Carlos, what's your take?
I mean, I love regeneration. Nothing about that episode should have worked. Like, literally nothing. Like, what are you trying to tell in how many minutes? Like, the episode just, and you're like, what? You're going to break continuity? We're going to think, like, no, it just, that episode works on every single level. And a key component to it is the whole kind of like, yeah, this is just, we're going to do, like, The Thing meets Star Trek for a good 12 minutes. And it works, and it just works. And I mean, obviously, you said Bride of Chaotica. There are other elements of kind of sci-fi pulp throughout all of Star Trek, but really, Enterprise does really lean heavily into it. And it's wonderful and super enjoyable. And I think what's nice about it is that they take it really seriously, and it works.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons it works. I like that. Abby, what's your take?
Well, one of the things that I love about Enterprise, too, is how they have so many things that you wouldn't expect to work, but they do, just like regeneration. You know, you're like, this might not work. And then it does. And you're like, oh, that's so cool. And the little internal bits of like that pulpiness too is just so fun. And I think about regeneration too, how there's all these little bits of the continuity and all that spread through. And one of the things I love about that episode is when Malcolm and Archer beam over to the infected ship, and they both times they beam, when they beam there and they beam back, they do the quick like look down to check and make sure they still have their whole body, because they're not used to beaming. And that's just such a little Enterprise moment in that episode, which is one of the times that Enterprise really connects to the bigger franchise. And that's so fun to have those little bits in there. And yeah, that's what Enterprise, that connection between where we are now, where we were, and where we're going, it feels more tangible in Enterprise. And that's such a great pick, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to round one.
Begin round
Can't
one.
wait to hear this. Carlos, what's your number one Enterprise vibe?
All right. So my number one Enterprise vibe is, my 5 words are the Vulcan compound in Sausalito. Hashtag you with your words like knives. And it is mean ass Vulcans.
Yes.
But yes, correct. 100%. It is definitely, a repeat, but I took it from a slightly different angle. And it has been mentioned, but one of the things that I love about Enterprise is that, and I think it was you, Abby, that said it, that, it isn't just a prequel to Star Trek and humans, and I'm sorry, not Star Trek, Starfleet and the Federation and humans, but really also about Vulcans, right? And one of the things that I love about Enterprise is the kind of the evolution of the Vulcans themselves, right? And the show does this really, really well. And, when you have T'Pau talking to Archer later on, and, she alludes to the fact that they are going to become the Vulcans that we know and love. And I think it's amazing to us that I think we as an audience assumes that, like, the Star Trek races, particularly Klingons and, like Vulcans and Romulans, are static, right? They are the way they are, and they've been the way they are across time and space. And I think Enterprise does such a great job of being like, no, humans evolve. Of course, all of these other races and species are also going to evolve. And just because you know them in the 23rd or 24th century, that doesn't mean that's what they were like in the 22nd century. So I never understood the backlash of like, these aren't the Vulcans we know. I'm like, yeah, that's the whole.
They shouldn't be.
Right. It shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
And so I picked it because it fulfills the potential. It's an example of the full potential of the show, that it isn't just a prequel to Starfleet and the Federation, but it is a prequel to kind of all of the Star Trek that we know. And I almost picked Judgment because obviously it is a nice prequel to the greatest Star Trek movie ever made, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, Jim's favorite. And I have to make it a point to bring it up at every single time.
I thought we were going to make it through without.
Oh, Jimbo, absolutely.
I still love it.
But I think one of my favorite things in Judgment, and it applies here to the Vulcans as well, is when you have, Proto-Martog or whatever his name was, talking about that, that not all Klingons, tells archers, like, what do you think? We're all warriors, Like, we are artists and winemakers and it's only like a few who are like the elite warrior class. Like, and it's so wonderful to kind of like see the multitude aspects of an alien culture and how they also evolve. And so I think, to me, a true vibe of Enterprise is that it really, and I think it's exemplified in the Vulcans, because obviously it's obvious that it is, the forming of Starfleet and the Federation as we know it. But I think, to me, there's an entire vibe that the mean-ass Vulcans represent, that it really was a prequel to all of Star Trek. And I think that is a whole vibe.
I love that. Perfect. Abby, what's your take?
Well, I'm sorry, not sorry to say, it's been a long road getting from there to here for the Vulcans. And
it had to happen. It had to happen.
Somebody had to do it.
I'm surprised it took this long, guys.
Exactly.
Okay, can I be honest? For like a split second, I thought, I have young kids and jobs, and so like I didn't. But for like a split second, I was like, I wonder if I could find a way to incorporate all the lyrics to the song in like my 5 words or like some clever way of doing it, at the end being like, haha, did you catch what I was doing?
You should have done it.
I didn't have the time.
Well, and I don't apologize for loving the theme song. And I have to say, I've been living in the first half of Enterprise seasons 1 and 2 for a couple years now because of my pod. And whenever I go and watch a season 3 or 4 now, and I get the jazzy song with the drums and the backbeat, I'm just like, they could have just left it. Because...
Hey, this pick is not Faith of the Heart. Okay. So.
Okay, fair.
That's for secondary systems, which is, of course, is on my secondary systems. Yeah. All right, Abby, any other thoughts on the Vulcan, the mean Vulcans, which I love? I had persnickety Vulcans, and you how did you describe your Vulcan pick?
Not the Vulcans that we know.
I love it.
So it's just such a good thing. And I've always been drawn to Vulcans. So that's probably one of the reasons I'm so drawn to Enterprise, is because they are such a presence and a force. But yeah, we wouldn't like, in hindsight, if there was no growth for the Vulcans. And so I think it just took people a while to realize that this is really a good thing. And it's an important part of the story to see that everybody needs to grow and change. Every species, every person, everyone. And the Vulcans are not immune to that.
And when I say that the Vulcans were always jerks, what I mean by that is that it fits. What the Enterprise is representing fits with how Vulcans are and the evolution that you just talked about, Carlos. Like one of my favorite moments of that evolution is in Dear Doctor, when Archer's trying to like justify, maybe we can help these guys, maybe we can get a team here. And she's like, hey, Vulcan arrived on Earth 90 years ago and we're still there. Is that what you want for these people? And he's just like, oh my God, that's exactly what I don't want.
They're not ready.
Then your decision shouldn't be difficult.
We could stay and help them.
The Vulcans stayed to help Earth 90 years ago. We're still there.
I never thought I'd say this, but I'm beginning to understand how the Vulcans must have felt.
Really good. I mean, it just shows you that the way they portrayed the Vulcans across Enterprise and across 903 episodes of Star Trek is incredible. Basically a miracle. Okay, Abby, what's your number 1 Enterprise vibe?
Okay, so this is my wild card that could be from any season, anywhere. And I surprised myself with the one that I picked because I was looking for...
Hold that thought. Yeah. You're looking for... Carlos, what episode did you have? I totally forgot.
Oh, okay. So, you are right. I always forget to say an episode. I was going to go with Broken Bow again because it just makes sense.
I can't believe I stopped the whole show to do that. Okay, Abby, keep going. Sorry.
No worries. So I got to this one and I'm like, okay, I need something that is just so Enterprise, that has all the things, the big themes, the small themes, all the things that I look for that make me smile. And I wanted something that was a true ensemble piece, because there isn't a character on Enterprise that I don't really like. Like there are some that get more screen time than others, but I really like all of them. And, everybody on this show has an important piece, whether or not they get to show it a lot. And so I needed something that showed off everybody. So this is a bit of it all and a true ensemble. That's my big theme here. And my 5 words are: goo species forces multiple innovations. Hashtag all the things. And my episode is Vox Sola.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. Okay, here's my list of all of the things that show up in this episode.
I can't wait to, because as soon as you said that, I started thinking like, oh, there's so much in that episode. Okay, go.
And I'm sure I've missed some, so please add on afterwards. Okay, so we have off-duty outfits. We have the gorgeous EV suits, which are one of my favorite costumes in all of Trek ever, anywhere, hands down. They're gorgeous.
1000%.
Porthos is in this one. There's heaps of food. There are multiple important scenes that take place over food and really good shots of the food in there. Okay, Malcolm invents force fields in this one, which is amazing.
That's the best.
Archer watches. Yep. Archer's watching water polo at one point, which is another Enterprise thing. Okay. The goo monster, the alien, has both good and bad CGI. When it's getting into the ship, that shot would hold up now. It could be on Strange New Worlds. As it crawls in, it's beautiful. Some of the other ones, not as much, but that one, perfect. And that's so Enterprise. Good and bad CGI in the same episode. We get a really good look at Trip and Archer's friendship. Yep. Hoshi is absolutely brilliant in this one and does linguistic things that nobody else could have done. As much as you want to say Archer and T'Pol saved Earth and the universe and founded the Federation, it wouldn't have happened without Hoshi too. Malcolm is incredibly good at his job throughout the entire thing, which is such another minor theme of Enterprise. Malcolm Reed is good at his job. Okay. T'Pol thinks differently than everybody else. Phlox brings up the morals about testing radiation and hurting the creature as they're trying to figure out what to do. T'Pol and Hoshi have an awesome moment together where they butt heads and then come together, which is gorgeous. Yep. Travis gets a great big scene where he talks to the Cretacean about how they offended them for eating. And that Cretacean is Vaughn Armstrong. So there's an Enterprise guest star right there.
Yeah.
The tech in this episode looks like it could just be a few generations from where we are now, which is such an Enterprise thing. The entire episode has that vibe of tension. There's an amazing soundtrack, and then that gorgeous shuttle launch shot as the last scene where they go off of the planet that's just the one whole big alien is just such an Enterprise moment. So I couldn't think of an episode that had more little pieces of all that other stuff that makes Enterprise than this one.
I love this. I'm going to give you one more. It was directed by Roxanne Dawson.
Exactly.
Yes. There you go.
It's such a good pick. It has everything. Carlos.
No, I was going to add that Roxanne Dawson because she directed, I think like 10 to maybe 12 episodes of Enterprise, something like that. And they're all, for the most part, fabulous, amazing. Yeah, I love this episode. I mean, It is, it's an overlooked episode. It's no one's ever going to say that's this is one of my 5 favorite episodes of Enterprise. But it's one of those amazing, fun episodes. And I had never really thought about it the way you just described it, Abby. I am 1000% now going to go revisit this episode this weekend and watch it. And
so worth it.
Yep. It's a microcosm of the entire series. And I just think it's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that pick. So good. Such a great, all-encompassing pick for Enterprise. All right, let's close it out with my round 1 pick. I thought this might be a duplicate, but I'm so happy it's not. Here we go. 5 words and a hashtag. And by the way, I am cheating on this one, boy. I'm really cheating. 5 words and a hashtag. Grasp, grab, grip, gimme, grapplers. Hashtag we all love grapplers. My pick is grapplers, and I started thinking about grapplers throughout Star Trek Enterprise. Incredible. All these episodes to choose from: Broken Bow, Fight or Flight, Breaking the Ice, Sleeping Dogs, The Augments. There's a ton of them on my listed here. But the episode I'm going to pick is for the absolute vibe and love of Enterprise from season 2, episode 7 of Strange New Worlds. And it's those old scientists and the Enterprise love and the vibe that came through in that episode, not just from the grapplers, but also the heronium alloys used in the NX-01 hull. That's part of the Enterprise, helped save the day, send Boimler back in time, and Mariner. And the shout outs they have to both Travis Mayweather and Hoshi Sato, incredible. Though that ending of those old scientists when they're just doing all this Enterprise love, and of course the great Lon Noonien Singh line that she loves the grapplers.
Love grapplers.
Oh, God, I just love it so much. So I'm picking those old scientists and their Enterprise tip of the hat and their love for the Enterprise vibe that is permeating through Strange New Worlds and the end of that episode. What's your take on that one, Abby?
Okay, that just made my heart fill because when I first saw that episode and they started going into these little Enterprise things, I'm like, oh, fun, because there's been a few here and there. And then when they leaned into it and they're like geeking out over everything, I'm like, that's me. That's me. I'm geeking out about Enterprise. And you know what? If Mariner and Boimler will geek out about these people, then obviously there is a lot here to love. And yeah, the grappler clip from La'an is now in my podcast. That's how good it is. It's a regular feature because I love grapplers. Who doesn't? They're so cool.
And the fact that the whole episode's set up where they're just like, oh, these guys and all their references, they're so annoying. Yeah. And then they start doing it at the end with
doing
Enterprise.
The same thing. Yeah.
For Enterprise, so good.
Bring the grappler online.
Try again.
Let's see if I can compensate.
Power down weapons. Stand by to deploy the grappler. Take us out of warp, Malcolm.
3 more seconds, Captain.
On my mark, Travis.
One of the things that I love, I love all of this, but I love the fact that Enterprise is there's like this resurgence of the show, right? And I don't know if it's like during the pandemic, people like watched it more or what, but like there's definitely been this like love. And by the way, I have to be honest, I feel like I've experienced it, right? Like I watched Enterprise live. I loved Enterprise. Yeah. But to me, you know, there's like that, like I am of a particular generation where to me, like the Star Trek that I will always be like connected to is that like holy trinity of the 24th century shows of TNG, DS9, and Voyager, right? And to me, Enterprise, and this is not a critique of the show, but it always kind of sat outside of that a little bit, right? And it was not the show that I revisited in terms of comfort food necessarily. And over the last couple of years, I have just like, no, it's not a 180. I've always loved the show, but I've really like, I have developed a brand new, like true, like actual love for the show that was to some degree there before, but it's definitely blossomed. And I think that I know a lot of people, and you kind of see it on social as well. And like, you know, on Strange New Worlds, like, you know, and one of my favorite moments of Disco season 3 was when they started talking about the temporal Cold Wars and the temporal Accords. And I remember geeking out.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yar,
so,
the time soldier.
Exactly. And so I just love the fact that all of these years later, right, this show that was always kind of, you know, it ended prematurely. It wasn't in the 21st century. It was so different that what everything became before has finally gotten its proper, like, you know, like moment in the limelight. And I'm just here for it because the show really is wonderful. It holds up and it will continue like a nice bottle of blood wine to get better with age.
I love it. And they had the Archer space dock in season 3 too.
Correct.
Oh, can I just tell you that gave me goosebumps the first time?
Great.
Like, and they played the theme, and I was like,
the theme?
So good.
Oh,
so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some secondary systems.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Abby, what do you got?
Okay, so I have 5, but they're going to be very short because these were like mini themes or mini vibes of Enterprise that I wanted to really call out, but I couldn't fit them in with my bigger ones. So I wanted to call out how Enterprise tends to have A plots and B plots that are both very good, but they don't always go together in the same show, which is such an Enterprise thing. And I had to pick Silent Enemy for that one because those are both great plots. they're kind of weird together, but I still love it because how many times have we talked about pineapple cake since
Pineapple
then?
cake.
And how many times?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's so weird.
Yeah, and those crazy weird aliens, and you get to hear the footsteps on the deck plating in that one very, very distinctly. And that is such an Enterprise thing too, because there's no carpet on Enterprise.
Yep.
So I had to throw that one out. I also wanted to call out a good decon scene because decon scenes are definitely a theme of Enterprise. And I wanted to talk about sleeping dogs at the end when you have T'Pol and Malcolm and Hoshi. And they've just been through this huge thing on the Klingon ship. It's all gross. They're all nasty. And they're just sitting there. They're not rubbing anything on each other. They're all just like zoning out, they're meditating, they're breathing, they're vibing with each other. Exactly. And they get T'Pol to bend the truth so they can stay in there for another half hour and just be. And that is a perfect decon scene and a really nice moment for the three of them. I wanted to call out Observer Effect for the connection to the bigger franchise and that wonderful reveal at the end that they're Organians, and then how that has a mood throughout that entire episode too. I have to call out Marauders from season 2, which was one of those, hey, we're going to go out there and help everybody because that's just what humans do. And that's such an underrated early season episode and such a good moment of, yeah, of course we can stand up against these Klingons. Like they just had so much optimism in there. And then for an ensemble episode that I couldn't quite pick, but it is so good, I had to call out Dead Stop because everybody has good moments in there, even Dead Fake Travis. The camera work in that is amazing. That's another Roxanne Dawson one. Yeah. And it has the carrot balls, which are my favorite piece of food from Enterprise, hands down. They're round little spherical carrot balls that you can see them eating on the station. And it's the best thing ever. So that's my secondary system.
I was surprised you didn't pick food, so I love it. That's a great list of Enterprise vibes.
Food was close. It was like the secondary thing in a lot of them.
I figured. Okay, Carlos, rattle off a few.
I had, I didn't think of necessarily episodes, but like one was going widescreen. I thought that I was going to.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
Wow, like that was definitely an Enterprise. I mean, obviously now it's standard, but like,
it was that, and then also widescreen, and then also that's a great Enterprise vibe, and then also they went digital in season 4.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So to me, I was thinking of like going widescreen and then digital 100%. I was shuttles. I almost did shuttles because you've never seen so many. Like, yes, they don't have different types of shuttles, but every episode of Enterprise,
you need a shuttle.
On a shuttle.
Yeah, no transporter. That's good. That's a total vibe. That's a good one. No transporter's a vibe.
And the launch effects when the shuttles launch, it's always a great visual in Enterprise.
Great visual.
Damn, that's a good one. I wish I thought that. You got Porthos. Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
Porthos was potentially going to be one. Andorians, I thought about a lot about Andorians that are so, you associate them now just with Enterprise, obviously Shran. But the two that really almost made it on were the submarine feel. Like I love, especially like you see it in Archer's ready room, just how small and the scene of like Shran walking and his antennas going back is one of my favorite little moments of Enterprise. The other one that I thought might do it, but I didn't want to bring it down, like the mood, was like the post 9/11 world. Like I really thought a lot about that because Enterprise, it premiered like 10 days after 9/11, and then obviously they retooled, season 3 to really kind of be about, what this new world and what the new world order was like. And again, I thought that maybe I got a little too meta. I would get a little too meta, but definitely, I mean, all of the behind the scenes features, every writer talks about the world, like the world that they were creating post 9/11. And so those were the kind of the vibes that made my secondary systems.
That's a legitimate vibe, that show, and it
is,
and it stood the test of time in terms of how they ended up representing it. It's really good. It's really special that it didn't kind of go off the rails there. Okay, pretty much everything you guys listed, I had Faith of the Heart. Submarine Vibes was my toughest cut. I had pecan pie as one of my and pan-fried
catfish.
Yep, exactly. Porthos, and then my special shout out. You just mentioned it with the good decon scene. Was my number one pick for Voyager vibes was gel packs.
Yeah.
So I thought about picking it, but I was going to pick the decon scenes and the gel. I can have gel as my is my running theme for vibes, but no, not picking it. Okay.
There's so much glitter in that gel.
So much glitter. All right. I knew this was going to be an awesome topic. Let's get into our regeneration cycle, and we're going to recap our picks and go through some stats.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay. Carlos and Abby, recap your picks. Carlos.
So my number 5 pick was zippers and underwear. My number 4 pick was innocence and excitement. My number 3 pick, my personal favorite, was annoyed to Paul. Perfect. A total vibe. Number 2 pick was movie night. And last but not least, my number 1 pick was mean ass Vulcans.
Fantastic list. Abby, how about you?
All right, so my number 5 from season 1 was the Temporal Cold War with the minor vibe of some CGI is better than others, and that was Cold Front. My round 4 from season 2 was not the Vulcans we know and the many layers of the Phlox to Paul Archer relationships, and that was Stigma. Round 3 from season 3 was about Enterprise living in the gray and Archer and Sim/Trip having to do something when they have big emotional moments, and that was Similitude. Round 2 for season 4 was the founding of the Federation and connecting species, and that was United. And then my round 1, the wild card that has a little bit of it all and a true ensemble episode, and that was season 1's Vox Sola.
Love that breakdown of Vox Sola. Okay, my recap number 5 was Temporal Shenanigans. I picked Stormfront for that. My number 4 pick was Genetic Manipulation. Broken Bow was my pick. Round 3, I had Mini Arcs and Borderland. I had representing that. Round 2, Pulp Sci-Fi Fun Regeneration from Season 2. And number 1, I had Grapplers from Strange New Worlds and those old scientists. Mm-hmm. Happy to pick that as a little bit of an outside the box pick. Okay, a couple of stats. We don't have that many, but I will say we had 2 duplicates. We had 3 Broken Bow choices. No other episode was picked more than once. And then the season breakdown was 1 for season 3, 3 each for season 2 and season 4, and then 7 overall picks for season 1, which that's when you get that vibe established. So that was similar to the Voyager breakdown too. And of course, we had 1 Strange New World pick. Okay. That's enough of that. Let's initiate a temporal inversion because it's time to hear from you.
Initiate temporal inversion.
Initiating.
And for this week's temporal inversion, we're going back to episode 171 and our top 5 game changers. A super fun episode. We got a great list in from Hawk. That's Hauke on Twitter, who is at Erythra the Gnome. He had an awesome game changer list, and his number 1 pick, I was going through this morning and it stood out, so I had to pick it. It's one of my picks tonight. His game changers was Mini Arcs from Star Trek Enterprise. Manny Koto taking over Enterprise. His 5-word hashtag was fulfilling its potential at last. Hashtag Mini Arcs. Number 4, he had from Discovery, Time Jump saves the galaxy. Hashtag Red Angel. Love that. Number 3 game changer was hashtag Funniest Frontier, and it was centering Lower Decks away from the bridge crew on a support ship. Number 2, he had another Discovery pick. I love this. Star Trek in Wonderland, hashtag Vulcan Hello, kind of the game-changing standard for Star Trek in the kind of motion picture on TV type production that now permeates television. And number 1, New Beginnings and Old Legacies, hashtag IDC, its franchise runner, Alex Kurtzman, giving creative ability to diversify and expand Trek in wholly new ways. I love this list. So great. And he mentions Prodigy and Trek parents and everything. Great list from at Erythra the Gnome. Yeah, that's appropriate for you, Abby. Okay, love that list. So once again, those picks more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal inversion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all the great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Please keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter or Blue Sky so we can retweet them, or whatever it's called on Blue Sky. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Enterprise vibes or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527, or just record it yourself and send me a DM We can do it that way too. Hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are returning to our series of one-off topics. I love these. And we're doing our top 5 one-off captains. One-off captains in Trek. I love this one. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So Carlos and Abby, if you had to choose one captain who only appeared one time in Star Trek, a one-off captain, who would that be? Carlos, what do you got?
I'm going to have to go with Captain Jellicoe?
No, you can't pick him anymore because he's in Prodigy. So
he's in Prodigy.
I was gonna make a joke. First of all, you shouldn't pick him because he's an asshole. But second, he's not eligible anymore because he was in Prodigy.
Oh my God. That's crazy. You're right. The moment the words came out of my mouth, I was like,
I did the same thing.
God.
I did the same thing. I was going to use him as an example.
To bring back, you brought down that guy?
You can't pick O'Connor either. He was a captain of his ship.
So does it count if they were only a captain for the one episode, but they showed up in a different episode not as a captain?
Okay, whatever. Yeah, that works. That works if you're Prime Directive. That should work. Hey, cheating encouraged on TrekRanks. So you got to pick. Do you want a pick that fits that, Abby?
I do. So Carlos, take a minute to think again. What about Sonia Gomez? Because she showed up at the end in Lower Decks.
There you
saw
go.
Her before, but we didn't see her as a captain. I loved her coming back as a captain.
That is spectacular. Did she only appear in one episode of?
Just that one, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, that is a spectacular pick. Sonia Gomez, Captain Gomez.
That is a spectacular
from first contact, not from Q Who.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Carlos, what do you got?
Oh my God, I don't know. I'm going blank after my Jellicoe blunder. Oh my God! You know what? You know how I would do it? I would try to be all clever. I would do it as like captains that were not Starfleet captains.
Yeah, I know you would. So there's one obvious one that I know you're going to pick.
Who? Go. Let me see.
It's your boy from your movie.
From what movie? The greatest Star Trek movie of all time? Who?
It was the standout captain in that movie. I guess he's a general. But he's the captain.
Like Chang?
Yeah, of course.
He's a general.
Yeah, but he's the captain of that warfare. Okay, all right. How am I going to edit this? Because people are not going to hear this. Keep going. What do you got?
Okay, all right. Oh my God, I'm like drawing a blank here.
Take your time. Clear your head. We're going to edit this all together. It's going to make you sound like you know what you're doing.
Like I didn't say Captain Jellicoe?
No, I'm going to keep that.
Yeah, okay, all right, fair enough. I mean, that was pretty good.
That'll be fun.
Can we just talk about how it's crazy that they, like, legit crazy, but like, never in a million years. Right?
Nuts.
Okay, but who else is going to be that much of a jerk to Admiral Janeway? Like, you're going to have to pick someone real specific to be able to stand up to her like that. So, I mean, it was a good pick, just unexpected.
True.
Yeah, correct. No. I think you're right. I think it is a really good. I'm really excited to see what they do with Prodigy Season 2.
All right. Are you giving up, Carlos? What do you got?
I'm giving up, man. What do I got? Hold on. I'm usually so good at this shit.
I know. It's a little bit of a tough one.
What about somebody like who became a captain once? Like, can you go like Data in Redemption? Like Captain One, like
there you go. That's a good one.
Let's go Data in Redemption.
You could do Geordi and Timeless for that too then.
Yeah, no Data in Redemption. Oh yeah, Geordi and Timeless works too. Okay. And you do Harry Kim in Endgame. Oh, yeah. That's a whole. You guys have opened up a whole realm of possible choices.
Crusher
or Crusher in all good things. No, all good things.
All good things. As well.
But
wait, isn't she the captain of the Helios?
Okay. Yes. Okay. We're out.
No, but she doesn't really have a crew.
We're done.
Channel closed. Reset. Subspace communication. Scrambler code Riker 1.
Scrambler code Riker 1 acknowledged. All right. Let's close this episode out with a huge thanks to Carlos Miranda and Abby Sommer. Awesome having you guys on the show. Any final Trek Scrambler codes? Either one you want to relay before we depart, Carlos?
No, I look forward to being on a 16th time. Maybe
some other episode down the road. Yeah, we'll see if it happens. Abby, Abby, thanks for coming on.
Jim, thank you for asking me for this topic because seriously, it has given me just a jolt of joy to be able to come on and talk about this. And anytime you have an Enterprise episode, you know you can call on me. And if anyone out there wants to hear me talk a lot more about Enterprise, you can come find the podcast that I host with the fabulous Chris and our co-host Emerita Melanie. That's First Flight Pod, and we're everywhere, all the socials and everything. And if you find TrekRanks on the Tricorder Transmission Network, you can find us there too. And again, find me on Twitter. I'm trying for Blue Sky. And thank you again, gentlemen. This was a lovely way to spend a couple hours.
Way too much fun. All right. Thanks, everyone, for engaging with us here on episode 178 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Okay, so one time Boimler dragged me to the Starship History Museum.
Dragged? You ran up to the doors.
No, I didn't. It was boring. I hated it. Anyway, so they had the NX-01 there, Archer's Enterprise.
Yeah, classic design. Plus it had, the grapplers.
Skip that part. They don't care.
I love grapplers.
See?
All right.
Anyway, later on in the...
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
It was a personal matter.
Why wasn't it sent through normal Starfleet channels?
That takes time. The letter was important.
So they sent it in code? Do you have any idea how suspicious that looked?
You read my letter?
Believe me, I don't feel very good about it.
I have more letters in my quarters. Would you like to read those as well?
I'm trying to apologize here.
Archer to T'Pol.
Yes, Captain.
Please report to my ready room.
Has anyone else read the letter?
No.
I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't mention it.
I won't, I promise.